Hey you guys, just in a chess video making mood today, and got a little game I'd like to share with you. It's a really nice line in the Vienna, the Halloween line, in honor of Halloween. Okay, I've missed it by a couple of weeks, but you know, there's still pumpkins rotting around the place, so I thought, screw it, let's do it. Okay, so we'll go through. It's a Vienna game, so it's e4, e5, knight to c3. Okay, now my opponent plays knight to f6, and I play f4, offering the Vienna Gambit. Okay, black should not take the pawn. Don't take the pawn. Okay, fast Freddy. So instead, my opponent plays what looks like a kind of conservative move, knight to c6, apparently defending the pawn, but it's not really defending the pawn, because after f takes e5, knight takes e5, you've got d4, right? And this is the Halloween line in the Vienna. Now there is a Halloween Gambit out there where which involves white, I think, actually gambiting an entire knight in order to get a similar position to this, with these two very dominant central pawns. So if I played my knight out here and then captured with my knight instead of this, and capturing with Freddy, we'd have the Halloween Gambit. Big difference is, in the Vienna line, I've still got two knights, right? And now this knight really only has a couple options. I mean, it could go here, I think, potentially. No, but that would be bad, right? Because after this, you've got e5, and this, you know, he's got two knights under attack, one from the queen here and one from the pawn, so that's not doable. Knight g6 has been played, and knight c6 is also common. Here my opponent plays knight to c6, and you must push the e pawn now, not the d pawn. Looks kind of equal, but it isn't. And now the knight retreats, okay? Because it can't go there because my knight takes, can't go there because my knight takes, can't go there or there because her maj is on the case. So back in the box, horsey. Get in your horse box. Okay, now we have knight to f3. It's the correct move. Any time that Freddy has vacated the premises, you've always got to watch out for this, okay? And this horrid check from the queen, especially if there's a knight around as well, preventing these ideas. You know, if he had a knight here, for example, you can't defend with g3 because then knight takes g3 and you can't recapture because queen takes rook. So you've got to be careful about that. Okay. Always living dangerously with the Vienna, but that's how we roll. Okay, now my opponent plays d5, good move, and I have one opportunity to capture en passant. Should I capture en passant? Well, if I do, I'm probably going to get queen comes out, and what has been gained, right? This pawn, Eddie here, is covering that square and that square. Fast Eddie. Table number 7 for Mr. Fast Eddie. Name the film. Might not be table 7, might be table 9, don't know. Good film though. No, I shouldn't capture en passant because I'm allowing him to develop his queen for no good reason, and I'm uncovering this square for no good reason, right? Which is keeping his horsey penned in right now. So his horsey has only got inferior and very inferior options, right? This is the ideal place for a horse. That's where it wants to be. Okay, so now I bring out my bishop. Now I had a few options with the bishop. It can come here, it could come there, whatever. But I figured that rather than this and lining up with that corner, that pinning the knight to the king was preferable, and it might trigger him to start pushing pawns up and waste some time. So now out comes the other horse. Coming out, when you put it in front of your king or queen, you're then pairing your knights. It's not the best arrangement for knights necessarily, but in a lot of cases, having your knights watching each other's backs is no bad thing. The knight, however, we have to know, is still pinned. This knight is also adding a second defender to this pawn, which is under attack once by my queen's horse. Okay, so now we castle, right? You want to get castled fairly quickly. Now my rook, who we shall call Felix, is now on the f-file. Okay, so maybe Helix and Felix, that's what we should call them. So now on the F file, so now there's pressure against this pawn for sure. Okay, so we have kickity doo-dah and simple retreat. Now here, in the analysis, the computer says, do you know, that wasn't actually the best move. Pause the video and see if you can figure out what I missed in this situation. There is like an attacking opportunity, possibly even a missed win, right, here, that involves ignoring the attack on the bishop. Okay, so pause and I'll tell you. All right, the computer here says, knight g5, dude. Why don't you play knight g5? What's wrong with you? You know, I'm there thinking, like, it's like this automatic thinking. You get stuck in automatic thinking, right? Oh no, my bishop, I have to defend the bishop. Well, what if you've got a devastating attack? So if I put my knight here, he captures the bishop, right? I've got knight takes f7, farewell to Freddy, with a fork on the queen and the rook, yeah? Plus, my queen's ready to jump into f3 and just rip black's throat out. That's what I should have done. Now, so this is what you've got to do. Play a game of chess, play your best, right? Which means taking your time. Take time, play your best, consider as many candidate moves as you can think of, and then find another one and think about that one. Play them through. If I play that move, what's going to happen, right? And then figure out, okay, which of these scenarios is best for me and worst for them. Simples. Okay, now I just automatically retreated the bishop. I didn't think about this. This there, maybe even queen here, I don't know. No, then he might just push his pawn forward, so I don't know. But I mean, that's devastating, you know? What an attacking, and I've got to think, okay, maybe we should have that on the checklist, you know, is my king safe? Yeah, right now. If I had to rip my opponent's king's throat out, is there a way? And I just didn't think about attacking opportunities in this position. All I thought was, yeah, I've got a development lead, and I have, you know, it's all good. I've got 1, 2, 3 pieces out on the board, and I've castled. 5 to me, 2 to him, okay? And so anyway, so I'll show you how it goes from here. Bishop retreats, double kick. Always nice to see. I don't care. Bishop retreats here against b3. The computer all this time is saying that the best move is still this, right? But I'm not even looking on that side of the board. I've gone board blind. Yeah. All I'm thinking is, oh, let's just make sure that my bishop's okay. Now, if he advances, maybe the knight, I can come in here and there, and that's quite a good square. And I'm playing on 4/8, literally at this point. The king side, I've forgotten exists. Right, now he brings his knight in to attack the bishop. So he really, really, really hates that bishop. And probably for good reason. But even so, I should have been attacking his rear end. So there's actually nowhere my bishop can go now. So out flies the dark squared bishop. Knight takes, knight I recapture with the A pawn. Because I want to keep A, I mean, it's a good idea to capture towards the center, all other things being equal. But also, I didn't want to create 2 pawn islands, and this way, at some point, I might get to push a pawn, like tradey, and still keep my pawn center, right? And reinforce all of this, which is very important. That's the kind of point that I've got in the game. Now he brings his bishop out to here, because he's now spotted this threat, okay? I'd also figured out that threat, but only after wasting about 3 moves on the queen side of the board, where I thought the action was, but in fact it wasn't. So this is a good move. It's defending this pawn again, and it's defending this. Okay, so now I figure this knight on c3 is doing nothing, right? It's got nothing going on. So let's reroute this knight back round, maybe to here. You know, generally love the comfort of having two horses in front of the king, because and as well, knights side by side are covering that, and let's do one at a time. Actually, that's be easier. So this guy's got covering that, boom, 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 right? And then if this knight was here in blue, he's covering all the gaps, you know. So those two knights, side by side knights, can be so powerful. All right, so now he advances his queen, maybe kind of pairing it up a bit with the bishop, and now we get to quite a critical position in the game. So my next move is to lift my queen, right? Yeah, I'm connecting my rooks here, but I'm also just thinking I want to give my queen more options, and this is one. Maybe attacking this pawn here, right? I also want to defend the bishop, you know? So it's just a general improvement, slight improvement. And now we have knight to here. And I play knight to f4, right? So I'm attacking this bishop. I have the option now of maybe capturing the bishop. Notice the bishop is gestuck, yeah? It's got no squares. So the bishop is at my mercy. He now plays his bishop out here, and here we stop, right? This is what we call a critical position. Material is equal. Black is threatening to castle, okay? And there's a lot of tension going on, right? We've got bishops facing off against each other. I've got a knight here looking at this. So here's what I figured out. First thing I want to do, I'm pretty sure I want to take out that bishop. If I do, my queen is discover defending that bishop. So that bishop will be then defended twice, okay? So that's what happens. And the queen recaptures. Now, I play the very quiet queen d3. Right, so now my queen is no longer defending this bishop, right? But my queen is attacking the knight. But here's a key thing in the Vienna. Always remember this f-file. Yeah, f-file is important. So now I notice, should my knight move anywhere, okay, let's say knight comes back to here, right? I've got two attackers against black's knight. But if I move my knight, I'm undefending my bishop because the queen's just moved, right, to attack this knight, but undefended the bishop at the same time. So this is what I'm thinking. Trade off bishops, yeah, and then somehow move the knight and, well, in fact, if I capture this bishop, the queen can't take because the queen is the only defender of that knight. So that's the issue, right? So I'm trying to create as much trouble for my opponent as possible. So if I capture the bishop, king has to capture. And there's still queens on the board, and he's not got to safety, right? So that he's going to have a king out in the board. Not good. So black now captures my bishop, and problem for black, okay? Knight takes bishop, knight attacks queen. Queen's got to move, but also with the knight moving, discovery by the rook means double attack on the knight, thanks to Freddie having vacated the premises. Okay, so black is now bound to lose material. So he plays queen to there, which is the move I expected, right? So he's threatening to take my knight and basically forces queen takes so that I defend my own knight with a queen. Okay, now he could trade off queens, but he doesn't need castles. Probably a good idea. Now I think for quite a bit, 44 seconds on this, and I decide that my advantage is strong enough. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns here against his 4. Okay. However, on the king's side, I've got a 2 against 3. But if I capture the queen, it's going to double his pawns, and I've got a knight. So I trade queens. He recaptures with f, and now I play knight to e6, forking the rook and the undefended c-pawn. So he now lifts his rook, and I think trade, capture. right? Now I'm up a pawn. Plus, I'm attacking this guy, right? Then I had to think on his time, thinking, I know what he's going to do now. He's going to play his rook to c8. And he plays his rook to c8. So I didn't think any further than, oh, look, a pawn. Free stuff, yeah? Now, I have got knight and rook both looking at this pawn. My knight could save itself and capture that pawn. So I've got 2 pawns at my mercy. So I figure let's take out the central pawn, because I'm not too worried about these guys. You know, if they want to march up, I've got pawns covering those squares, but I now drop a pawn. And you've got to be very careful in these situations. Okay. Now my big advantage is my central pawn majority, which I've had, remember, since the very start. First few moves, he brings out his knights. Yeah, I capture, f takes e5, knight takes e5. Oh no, d4. You know, all of this. It's not good. That sounded right like Ricky Gervais, that, so I do apologise. Anyway, so I've got a pawn hanging there. That pawn's undefended. That pawn's going to be undefended. So I need to be careful not to collapse here. Plus, you know, these guys could constitute a threat at some point. So anyway, I grab the a pawn off. He now comes in with a check instead of just capturing the pawn outright. King f2, check, king g3. Now he can't check me again because knight's covering that square. So he gobbles up the pawn. And now I'd already figured out I can play pawn to b4, moving it into a protected square, right? Which is much better than dropping my rook back and trying to defend it that way, because that then means I've got my strongest piece tied up with the trivial issue of defending a solo pawn. Right? Now, in an ending, that's very often the case, but excuse me, I don't want to tie up my rook at this point. So pawn there, let the knight handle that job, and let the rook, which is a lot more powerful and high speed, concentrate on the important stuff. So we have rook d2 now looking at another pawn. So I throw in a check, king comes here. Okay, now I've got some pawns at my mercy. Okay, king could have gone there, possibly. So now I play my knight back with another check, and the king is running out of squares. He's really only got 2 squares he can go to. Oh no, he hasn't. He's only got 1 because that one's covered by the knight. Okay, so king to here now. Now I throw in another check with a rook. King goes here. And I've got to be quite careful. I now expected, I'm worried about this move. Excuse me. Attacking my knight, also taking away this square. And ideas that maybe if my knight moves, he's got like rook here, covering all these squares. And could I actually find myself like checkmated in some way? So you've got to tread very, very carefully. So I have a think now and think, out of all my options, off you go, Eddie. Eddie the Eagle is on his way. The king is in the way. The rook can't go to e2 because it will get snapped up, yeah? So this is the right move. And, you know, a lot of us, it's tempting very often just to focus on pieces and stuff like that. Sometimes the right thing to do is leg it for the line. You know, this is a pawn. The king's now moved too far away from the pawn. The king goes behind the pawn. Pawn's off. Off you go, Eddie. On your way, son. Right? Eddie goes there. He attacks my knight. Okay, now, maybe I learnt a lesson. Well, I hadn't learnt the lesson because I hadn't done the game analysis at this point. But I thought, screw it. Okay? It's a knight. It's not a queen. Let's go for a queen. Because I'd already figured out, if takes, what can I do? Rook takes f4. Check. And that last word is important. Check means this king has to move there, or there. There's nothing else for it. And when he does, boom, shakalaka, boom, Eddie becomes Queen Edwina, right? And it's all going to go very badly wrong for black, so he resigns at this point. But I thought that was interesting, didn't you? Let's have a quick review. And this, I think, is going to be the way that I'm going to approach chess right now, because I'm obviously not the brightest tool in the brightest bulb in the box or brightest tool in the shed or whatever. And you know, I'm old, so I'm not as sharp as Magnus. So what I'm going to be doing, I think, from this point is I'm going to look at my games and I'm going to try and take one lesson from each game, and I'm going to try and consume that lesson and absorb it, right? So in this one, Happy Days takes, apparently it's a great move, but you know, it's repertoire, and that's best, and that's great move. There was only one good move and you found it, right? Don't play d5 here, play e5. Okay, knight has to go back. Best, 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 happy about that. Best, best, happy. Okay, well, excellent. Bishop moves back is excellent, but not the best. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to drop my bishop back here? Like, computer's like, duh, no, check it, right? Knight g5, okay, and let's see the line. His bishop has to come out here to defend that pawn, and he's busted. He's busted right open, yeah? Now, that is all I need to learn from this game, right? Where are we on the thing? I mean, I haven't lost. I mean, this was more of a mistake. This move was actually a missed win. So let's have a look at this one. Okay, this is a missed win. Developing, pinning the knight. Could it be this again? Okay, let's find out. There, retry. Is that the best move? Yes, plus 5.5, right? Instead of plus 1, which is what I got. Plus 5.5. Okay, and let's see the line that the computer thinks is likely to happen. Bishop out there. I mean, it's everything. Everything is lined up, you know, at this. And black's not castled, and he's very unlikely to get castled. You know, I've just got too many pieces active. This guy's out of the picture, right? And these guys, that's all he's got, right? This is out of the picture. No, wrong colour, you know? These guys still haven't been developed. And that's what happens when you play these gambit lines, right? But you've got to strike, strike, strike. And we had that. Oh, look as well, I'm attacking the rook. Yeah? So we had that the other day. I did a video with the Black Mardima Gambit. And that was a key lesson. When you play these gambits, you have to keep the pressure on. Attack, 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 attack. Apparently there's a quote from Kasparov who said, if you can launch 10 threats consecutively against your opponent, he will blunder. Right? It just becomes too much to control. So yeah, lesson from this game, it's the same lesson, you know. I missed the fact that I could have just sacrificed my bishop earlier on and just launched an incredibly strong attack. So I think the lesson that I need to take away from that is, even when it seems like defense is obligatory, is there an attack, right? Is my opponent's king safe? So I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that on my checklist, and there we go, the checklist grows, and hopefully we're all growing. Okay, so hope that's been useful for you. Thanks for watching. See you later.